I'm John Daniels, CEO of BICSI, and I'm here with Manuel Vexler from Huawei, and we're going to be having a conversation about various topics in the ICT industry.
Hi, I'm Manuel Vexler. I'm the Executive Director for the Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, former Huawei, as well as I'm an instructor for sustainability at Cornell University.
So you were formerly with Huawei.
Formerly for 10 years, yes.
Formerly for 10 years, yeah. Tell me about the organization you're with right now.
The Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, it's a industry association. Compared to BICSI, it's a small emerging industry association.
Okay.
Focused on bridging the gap between digital transformation and sustainability.
Okay.
Because there is a gap, as you realize, we're doing data centers and cloud and AI, and then we do sustainability, and these are two different transformation processes, and if you look into the company, they are done in two different departments, if you want, or organizations, so we're trying to bring them together.
So what is it that you're doing within that gap to bring those two together? Give us an idea of sort of the things that you're doing and perhaps the topics that you're trying to elevate to,
Sure. Daily
conversations, if you will, right, to address the gap.
One key gap right now is in the sustainability for the supply chain. So if you look at a large company, they have three sustainability mission statements. One is to comply with regulations and to be compliant with the laws of the countries, and the other one is their own sustainability goals, such as net zero, Microsoft net zero in 2030 or net negative and so on. The third one is carbon footprint, for instance, and they call it Scope 3. And Scope 3, it's about the carbon footprint that it's emitted by the supply chain. And companies like Shell have 30,000 suppliers.
Wow.
So it's a big gap between what you plan for your company, for Shell, for instance, and what you can execute, because 90%, 95% is produced by your supply chain.
Right.
So we want to bring them around the table and start to address the issues.
And it's also a matter of, from what I understand, is the different levels of sustainability for companies that they have to meet, right? And getting visibility into the practices of the suppliers and understanding how the products that they are manufacturing, building, and supplying to the final assembly place. Is that a gap also that you're trying to help companies address?
And actually, if you look at the gap, it's even more complex, because if you look from the supplier to their customers, right, their clients, the supplier may have 3, 4, 10, depending on the size, 10 different clients. For instance, in the car industry, tire manufacturers put tires on different brands.
Right.
And what's happening is there is no standard. BICSI would love that. Can we do something together? Because there is no standard on how to align the requirements for the supplier. Each of these companies have its own sustainability plan, as you mentioned, different levels, different complexities, and they have right now the suppliers on a contractual obligation. You have to deliver this and that. They never try to get together to say, okay, let's streamline these requirements because we're driving our suppliers crazy. So that's one way to look at it.
That's really fascinating. So then, in the world of ICT,
yes,
I've been having lots of conversations about data centers and data centers with respect to sustainability, designing data centers with sustainability in mind from the beginning. From your perspective in your organization, are you addressing that space directly, or is that just one of the spaces that you're trying to influence, if you will, in addressing addressing sustainability needs and requirements?
We are, so as an industry association, we are bringing people together, forming working groups.
Okay.
And so we are actually driven by our customers, if you want, by our subscribers, by our members.
Okay.
So with the membership, you actually let them decide if they want to have this topic. No, we don't have right now. Our task force is actually the cars and tires.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
So we're looking
So
at
you don't have any clients or customers that are pushing you to also begin addressing the specifics in the data center space, like working with organizations like TIA or even BICSI to understand the sustainability challenges within this industry and then helping us to address those.
Right, you're absolutely right. But actually, we should work with organizations like TIA and BICSI because as an organization, we are providing training to them. We are providing best practices if they require standards, but we are not looking at telling them how to solve their problems.
Right.
It's more to organize themselves, self-organizations. And I think BICSI is a little bit like that, right? You're bringing...
Yeah, we're a convener like you. We
Yes.
like to bring various professionals together from various aspects of the ICT industry to work together to harmonize the standards and to come up with standards and best practices and understand what the best practices are, and then promoting those throughout, the industry. Right?
Exactly. So if you want, the business model is the same.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's good. So let me ask you this: if you could name 1, 2, or 3 specific areas that you would start with in the data center space that is specific to meeting the sustainability goals of, I don't know, the not the WHO, but I can't think of the name now. But,
yes, you mean the United Nations SDGs?
Yes. That's it was escaping me.
Sustainability talk.
Yeah. So 1, 2, or 3 things that you think the data center space should be focused on.
I'm sure you know them already, John. Electricity, which actually a lot of it is lost in cooling.
Yeah.
Right. So we heat up and we cool down and we use twice as much electricity. Right. So that's one. The second one will be electronic waste, which is massive. Every 2, 3, 5 years, we rip off a data center and we build a new one. And this is a total disaster for the environment because these are not recyclable goods, right? So that will be a second one. The third one will be the inefficiency in the software industry. We try to solve by software a lot of problems, and we design massive amounts of software which really run on electricity, which today runs on fossil fuels. 87% is fossil fuels, right? The rest is a little bit of nuclear, hydro, and wind and solar.
Yeah. So you hit on one area that seems to be a common theme, which is the demand for power. And it's not just the demand for power to power the new GPUs and the AI computers, if you will, but it's also power to cool the data centers, right? And the power needed to basically run everything, right?
Absolutely.
That's a very common theme, and the demand for power is just shooting up exponentially, and it's causing some challenges, particularly in some parts of the world, with respect to being able to supply the power.
Sure.
So, for example, a couple of the states in the U.S., Virginia, I think, and Texas, have the largest number of data centers, or maybe the largest data centers in the U.S. And And in Virginia in particular, the power grid there is getting to the point of not being able to support more large data centers coming online, right? And so how do we solve for that from a sustainability perspective? But instead of burning more, fossil fuels, are there other alternatives that perhaps the power grids in the U.S. could turn to supply power?
I would approach it from two different angles. The first angle is reduce the amount of energy that it produces fossil fuels. And this is a transition period. People think we'll turn a switch and we'll have solar, right?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
There is no solar during the night, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And you mentioned Texas, by the way. I live in Texas, and we went for 1 week of blackout. So I don't think they have reliable power. Actually, their semiconductor fabrics, right? The fabs went down, and these are millions and millions of dollars lost because of lack of consistent power. So Texas is not in good books with me.
Yeah. And there's a lot of unintended consequences with respect to putting in sustainable, what they thought at the time were sustainable solutions, where you put it in and then you realize, oh, now it's causing ecological issue in another area, and so now they're having to solve for that and maybe change their power generation approach because it's now creating other problems elsewhere.
And Texas actually has a lot of nuclear power. They don't like to talk about it because of the the basin, right? The Cambrian basin and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the other solution I wanted to propose to you, it goes into the semiconductor industry. We're using the wrong components for cloud, and especially for AI. And I know NVIDIA is on the top of everything and top of mind, but these are hundreds of watts of power, and I know technologies that are 10 times more efficient in power. We need the semi-industry to migrate, but typically this migration takes a cycle of 10 years. So we took a game component, right, the NVIDIA, and we made it into an AI component. And this is where a lot of power is wasted actually at the silicon level, and a lot of cooling, and BICSI is great on cooling and so on, goes in. So you should start from the basics. Less software, more efficient components, and then better, more renewable power. But this is the slowest migration, right? Because we don't know how to produce large volumes, large amounts of power.
Yeah, that's a big challenge. And again, the demand for power just keeps going up, and it's going to continue to go up. So we've got to do something about that pretty quick. And along that line, what standards do you see today that are at least beginning to address some of these challenges that we're seeing with respect to the demand for power, right? And sustainability.
I think the standards that are going in today are mostly looking at reduction of carbon footprint by the oil and gas industry, for instance, which is the main target. They have to report on ESG. But I think from a standards viewpoint, what's going to happen more than what's happening right now is there are standards for the finance industry. And the finance industry is now starting to look at where they invest, in what technologies they invest. It's called impact financing, green bonds, blue bonds, and so on. There is a whole array of finance there. But you see the finance industry moving the allocation of funding toward green energy. And this is not a typical standard. It's not what we use in the IT industry, in the telecom industry, but it is a a trend that is happening, and they have their own, I would call, best practices, really, not standards on how to allocate funds.
So they could be a good resource for other industries trying to adapt their standards and evolve their standards to a point where we're beginning to help the industries solve for these challenges, right? So,
I think this connection between maybe industry associations for banking and finance should come to BICSI, to TIA, and start to open a dialogue. But I've been in technology long enough to tell you that this dialogue is difficult because we speak two different languages. Forget about the English, right?
yeah, we were talking about that earlier today.
Yes.
Yeah, every language has, a lot of languages don't have the words for some of the technology that we're using.
Exactly.
Which is another challenge in and of itself, right, to try to get through all of that. So, Manuel, thank you very, very much.
Thank
I've
you,
enjoyed
John.
the conversation.
Me too.
And maybe perhaps we could at some point in the future begin to work together to help educate
I'm definitely looking
both
forward.
industries and to learn and move everyone forward. So again, it's
We're
nice to
moving
meet you.
into the education part actually as we speak. So.
Okay, perfect. That would
Thank
be
you
great.
very much.
Thank you very much. Have a great conference.
Thanks.